welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. And today we are having the Tomintoul live tasting with Iain Forteath. Well, how do you say it?
Forteath.
Forteath.
I'll let you off.
Okay. He's the master blender of Angus Dundee Distillers, which Tomintoul belongs to. So thank you very much for being here and telling us all about Tomintoul.
It's a pleasure to be back in Germany, and thank you for having me tonight.
Okay, so how long have you been in the whiskey industry?
So I joined the wine and spirits industry, I suppose, at the tail end, the beginning of 2011. And then I've worked with Angus Dundee since 2015. So
about 12, 13 years?
Yeah, 13 years, I suppose, coming on.
Okay.
So one of the younger faces, I guess, on the blending scene. But no, my dad and my grandfather were very big whiskey fans. And I'll say for legal reasons, I've been drinking whiskey since 18, but I've always appreciated it as a kind of a special drink, and I suppose it has a lot of heritage in Scotland for celebrations and commiseration, and I always had a real passion for whiskey. So to be able to make it for a living is a bit of a dream come true. But I love what I do, and it's a pleasure to be part of such an interesting brand, both with Tomintoul and of course Glencadam as well, which is another big part of Angus Dundee.
Yeah, I think if you're responsible with whiskey, then growing up with whiskey is not a problem.
No.
I had probably more than 10,000 bottles in my hands before I was 18.
Yeah,
but it's just packaging whiskey.
It didn't do us any harm. I think that's No, it's the same with my son. If he loves the labels, so of course he's very young. He's only one. But in my whiskey bar at home, if he's upset or he's having a hard time, I like to show him the different bottles, and he likes the different labels and the styles. So yeah,
that's cool.
So I hope he'll appreciate it, but not obviously until he's 18.
Yeah, sure. So we're talking about Tomintoul today, and Tomintoul is in the Speyside. I've actually, on my last tour, I've actually been to the town of Tomintoul again, but I've been to Tomintoul Distillery, I think in 2018. So here you can see a map of, mainland Europe, and then we have Great Britain, Ireland, and where you see the small red still, that is where the distillery is, and that is in the heart of Speyside.
It is indeed.
Well, actually, a bit south in the
southern,
Speys.
yeah. It's in the heartland of Speyside, I guess. Being the kind of Glenlivet estate, but it's the kind of southern point of the kind of Spey boundary. Yeah,
that was one question in the German one. So there's Glenlivet on here.
Yeah. Do you know the story of this?
Tell me.
So it is a confusing one, I guess. But Glenlivet is a prestigious part of Speyside. So it's a prestigious part of the kind of Speyside region. And actually, if you think of Speyside as like a wine region, it's one of the kind of sub-regions. So if it was Burgundy, you'd have places like Nuit Saint-Georges, you'd have Makerey, you've had different areas. It's the same idea with whiskey. So you have Dufftown, and you've got the Forest area, and you've got Glenlivet and these sort of things. So it's a sub-region of the Speyside area. We obviously have very famous neighbours. I don't work for Glenlivet. They are lovely guys. I know a lot of the team very well there. But yeah, I would probably have come on my private jet. I'm joking. If that was the case, no. But they are neighbours. They are over the mountain from us. So we actually our water source comes off the same hillside, but on different sites.
Oh, okay.
But no, we're not trying to piggyback off of their distillery. We're kind of named after this prestigious region.
The thing is, Glenlivet is actually Gaelic. You have Glen, which is a valley, and you have Livet, which is the name of the river.
Yeah.
So, and every distillery on this river is actually in the region of Glenlivet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the region where it comes from, Speyside and sub-region.
Yeah,
as you
so it's
said.
a region, sub-region.
Glenlivet.
But it can be a little confusing, so I understand why there are questions to that.
Yeah. And there are a lot of old casks where you can see the name Glenlivet now.
Yeah, well, so the full name of Tomintoul Distillery is Tomintoul Glenlivet. And actually, there's really cool, cool subjective, I guess, but I think I'm preaching to the converted, but there's cool old signage of Tomintoul, and it's TG in almost like an arrowhead formation, and that was the old logo. So Tomintoul Glenlivet was always the name from the 1960s. And we took it off in the 90s. We took it off in 2000 really, but we give reference to the fact we're within the Glenlivet region, but we don't call ourselves Tomintoul Glenlivet anymore, just Tomintoul.
Yeah, you don't want to piggyback, but it's strange that so many brand names are now like common courtesy to use. You can make a sandwich and call it the Big Mac. It's now totally legal, and you've always had the Glenlivet on there.
Yeah, well, it's funny. So do you know the old history of Glenlivet? Mm-hmm. So it used to be part of. It was because it was one of the first commercially successful kind of whiskies. So Glenlivet was it was made famous by the king. It was a distillery that everyone loved. Or had a high prestige. Sorry, is maybe the better way to describe it. I'm not here to sell Glenlivet, by the way. But because it was one of the first recognised names, it actually became used like a prestige symbol. So Macallan Glenlivet was a thing once upon a time.
Yeah.
If you look at old bottles, and lots of distilleries had Glenlivet as a kind of double barrel to their name, or I would say, and it was like saying this is prestige whiskey by saying it's Glenlivet. We are one of the few distilleries that are actually in Glenlivet. So when eventually Glenlivet tried to protect it, and what they did was they kind of removed a lot of that for the distilleries that weren't in the region, but those that are in the region are able to put it. So Tamnavullen's also in the region.
Yeah.
You've also got Braes of Glenlivet, which is now called Breval. But there's a few that are still in there. Anyway, but that's the kind of backstory. So it was seen as this prestigious area.
Yeah. Okay. So, but let's have a bit of a look. I have a nice footage from back in 2018.
Yeah.
And this is the distillery, and this is kind of a really nice setup for your job. All of these on the left side, where we have the steam, that is the production area where Robert is. I think Robert Fleming is right.
Robert Fleming, master distiller,
is distilling and making his perfect spirit and the gentle spirit, and then you have all these buildings to the right. They're all warehouses, and you can walk through there and say, "I need that. I need that."
I must admit. So I joined Angus Dundee in 2015, and when I joined the company, I was the global brand ambassador, and to be able to. I remember getting the promotion. I remember getting the phone call in 2021 asking me to become master blender. I was already involved in the blending team, but as a whiskey geek, it's a bit of a dream job. And I remember my first visit to Tomintoul after getting the phone call was maybe about a month later, and it's a very different feeling when you know that the casks in that warehouse I have a responsibility for those now. So whereas before I always saw it as these are the casks, but now kind of the fate of some of those casks is going to come to me, which is quite exciting.
That's nice.
Of course, that doesn't put Robert out of the picture. Robert's an amazing guy to work from, work with and for. Robert's our master distiller. If anyone's had a chance to meet him at a whiskey show or in Scotland, he is he's a 4th generation whiskey maker. And he's a very humble man, but there's not much that he doesn't know about whiskey. So I'm always trying to find things that he doesn't know to try and compete, but it's very rare. He's an amazing man to work from, and I don't want to sound too millennial, but he's an amazing mentor for me in terms of his knowledge and understanding of the distilling side. Particularly is incredible. It's he looks after all the casks when I'm not out there. I guess I just play with them afterwards.
I was there in 2018. There's a distillery video about Tomintoul, and I've had an interview with him. So let's talk a little bit about the history. Yeah. The distillery was founded in 1964 with 2 whiskey trading, W and S, Strong & Co. and Hay and Heckloyd. They founded it. They were whiskey traders from Glasgow. They built the distillery one year afterwards. It was sold to Scottish and Universal Investment Trust. And then afterwards, they actually did get Fettercairn and the blender White & Mackay. Yeah. So they were kind of already a little bit of a conglomerate. And then they got bought by Angus Dundee in 2000. And that's where they still are. And now they are kind of from this... Angus Dundee is kind of a whiskey maker.
Yeah, we're a blender and bottler and have been for a long time actually.
Blender and bottler with 4 distillery, or is it 4? Or?
2.
2 distilleries is a bit more than just a blender and bottler, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean we're kind of a medium tier company, I guess, in the whiskey world, and it's quite a fascinating thing. I mean, I was a customer of Angus Dundee before I joined them, and I used to be a whiskey retailer back in Scotland. And I knew Tomintoul and I knew Glencairn, but actually I didn't know as much about the company until I got on board. And they've been blending, broking and kind of bottling whiskies for about 70 years now, almost 80 years actually. And they've got an amazing inventory of stock. And we actually supply whiskey to about 4% of the world. Well, we supply about 4% of the world's export.
Nice.
So a lot of people don't know Angus Dundee, but you've probably tried one of our products somewhere along the line. So for a long time of our existence, we didn't have a distillery. We had, we did kind of bespoke blending. We used to bottle with other companies. That was a big part of our kind of building blocks, I guess. And then from 2000, we purchased Tomintoul. 2003, we purchased Glencairn. And then since then, we've also got our own bottling plant. We have warehousing facilities in near Glasgow as well. We own a few casks. So as a whiskey geek, I love Tomintoul and I love Glencairn, but actually in our warehouses we've got some amazing casks from all over, which is part of the fun of this.
I've been to the distillery and I have some footage that I'm not allowed to share.
Did you find some other casks?
I found some casks. Robert says, yeah, just don't publish them.
It's definitely. I mean, so for a long time we had these casks that we've traded or we've bought over the history. And yeah, if you get to come to the distilleries, you can sort of play whiskey bingo. You can find some favourite distilleries, a lot of teaspoon drams as well, so lots of names that you maybe haven't heard of. And the other thing is we fill a huge amount of bourbon casks at both sites. So if you're a bourbon fan, you can literally play Spot the Bourbon Distillery. You can see casks in our warehouse from Heaven Hills, Wild Turkey, Claremont Springs, you name it.
We've done a lot of talking already, so let's get some whiskey in the glass, right?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You want to pour?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're starting off with the 10-year-old. So that's kind of where everything begins with Tomintoul.
Yeah, it's a great kind of building block for the showing off the spirit character, I guess. So Tomintoul 10 is our kind of bread and butter. The kind of core styles of Tomintoul are a very buttery, sweet, creamy dram. We're known as the gentle dram. Our whiskies are quite smooth in the core range anyway. And Tomintoul 10 and Tomintoul 16 are the classic examples of this. I don't want to use the word breakfast whiskey too often, but it's a very kind of soft and easy drinking style. And yeah, it's definitely... What I like about this is the cask hasn't overpowered the spirit. You can get some Tomintoul DNA from nosing this glass. So it should be fresh, it should be citrusy, you're going to get a nice kind of buttery, bready note to it. I always get like shortbread and a bit of maybe toffee or butterscotch, but I don't know how about yourself. Are you finding any particular...
Yeah, I think it's nice that you have a nice bourbon style, but still I do feel a bit of spiciness in there.
Yeah, it's a great example of why lower alcohol isn't necessarily a bad thing. Tomintoul's core range is 40%, and I promised we wouldn't do that if we made it rubbish. If we thought it was making the whiskey bad, that is not the purpose. But being a gentle dram, being a kind of approachable style, our core range is bottled at 40%, and we also do higher strength bottlings and different finishes. But I like this because you still get a bit of spice.
And a bit of nuttiness. That is strange. Yeah. In a blind tasting, I would probably say there's a smidge of Oloroso in there. Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah. No, I know it's funny. I mean, so we do use a high volume of first fill bourbon casks. So. These are casks that are fresh from the US. So we refer to them as BB1s, but we use a lot of first fill bourbon casks in this product. So you are getting a lot of vanilla, kind of heady, almost like a little bit of coconut butter there, coming from these first fill casks. So it does give you some presence and some spice. Yeah. And then the spirit of Tomintoul is quite bready and quite fruity. So you get a little bit of orchard fruit there as well, and a bit of kind of nice, kind of almost like poached fruits or kind of spiced fruits.
Yeah, I have one comment that I want to comment as well. Herbie on Wheels, Chupayu. It is not live. Yes, it is. Yes, it is live. Yeah, I like it, but it's a. For me, the question is it beginner's whiskey?
I don't think so. For me, I think it's a whiskey that kind of it's part of the occasion. And I think that from my perspective, I think sometimes as a whiskey nerd, I mean that term in dealing a little bit as a whiskey geek. I love drams that challenge you. I love whiskies that I can sit and nose for 20 minutes and tease out every nuance and every subtlety. But actually, as well, I enjoy having a dram where you can sit with friends and kind of sit and enjoy a whiskey. And I think the balance is something we always try to aim for thoroughly with Tomintoul. So. It's a soft whiskey, but it's well balanced. So if you're sitting playing cards with your friends or you're catching up with loved ones, it's a whiskey you can have in your glass, you can love and appreciate it and enjoy the taste, but it's not going to distract you from the company. And I think, again, for the price point, I mean, this is a whiskey that we want people to be able to afford to try. So it's
around, for everybody in Germany and Netherlands, it's around between 30, 35 euros, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it's a whiskey we want people to drink. It's not a top shelf dram by its style. And I think it gives you a lot of balance. So beginner's whiskey, it's a whiskey you can introduce to a beginner.
It's a gentle dram, but still has a bit of spiciness in there.
Yeah, there's enough presence to let you know you're having a whiskey. I think that's the thing for me. Good Slange.
Slange?
That was weird.
It has that bourbon character, but it has a bit of spiciness in there.
It does. I think it's definitely got presence. I get like nutmeg and candied kind of cake spices.
It's strange though. It's spicier than I remember or expected it.
Yeah. I think the classic profile of Tomintoul as a dram, and this falls in the 16 as well, is there's a lot of spice in the mouth. It doesn't necessarily have a kind of burn. It doesn't kind of. It's not as spicy on the swallow, but it is quite tingly on the tongue. So it does have presence. And yeah, I think it's a classic Speyside in terms of you get that honey and you get a lovely kind of fruit character. It's a sweet whiskey, but it's not overtly sweet as well. It's not kind of rich and dense like a very heavy sherry. It's got this mellow sweetness that comes through.
Mm-hmm. So we have one question here from Miro. Mm-hmm. Which distillery Tomintoul gets its bourbon barrels from?
From all over, actually. So one of the nice things about the size that we're at is that we're not one of the massive whiskey companies, and so therefore we don't own a bourbon distillery. So if you, a lot of the bigger companies will be part of a group that owns a distillery in Kentucky or Louisville. Mm-hmm. For us, we buy from brokerage and we buy from different parcels. So actually, at the start I was saying you can play bourbon bingo in our warehouses. We actually buy from all over the bourbon world. So we fill a really high volume of new wood. One of the privileges, I suppose, of buying distilleries that have been making whiskey already. Neither Tomintoul or Glencadam were new distilleries when we bought them, and both of them have many decades, if not centuries, of experience of making the whiskey. As we get to see the casks that really work for us. So Tomintoul being quite a light and buttery spirit, it means that bourbon casks don't overpower that. So actually we fill probably over 90% of our spirit into bourbon wood, whether that be first fill, second fill, but American oak is important for our spirit to give it some body. Because if you take it and stick it straight into a really powerful cask like an Oloroso sherry butt or a port pipe, you'll find that over time that cask type will just overpower the delicate spirit, that softer spirit style. So we fill a huge amount of ex-bourbon casks, a huge amount of American oak, and then we will maybe do a finish afterwards, like some of the other products where you are conditioning that cask in bourbon and then putting it into a heavier cask type where it's got a bit more flavour and body to hold it up.
Yeah. So is it then, or a question for me, is it then, do you feel differences between the different bourbon distilleries, I would say?
Not massively.
Okay.
It's kind of like different bodegas of sherry as well. I think that there is a subtle difference in some. If you have a bourbon distillery where it's a high rye, they can be a little bit more peppery, but really that's not we're not looking for anything that's too different to our core style. So I wouldn't say there's a huge difference, although that could be critiqued by, I think I'd love to do a release where we did say Tomintoul 10 in 3 different bourbon types of cask. I don't know if I'd be allowed to do it, but it'd be fun to try. Okay. To really kind of screw in that DNA, but no, I think really it's more about the flavour from the American oak rather than the bourbon itself. So really what we're looking for is the conditioning and the kind of the roundness of the oak rather than it being a new active cask. So we're looking for the impact of the wood after the bourbon rather than the bourbon that went into the wood. If that makes sense.
And you totally ignoring the Tennessee, they just bourbon.
Well at the moment it's in the bourbon casks. I think we do have some Tennessee.
But you just stick them in with the bourbon?
Kind of, I guess. I've never really thought of it that way before, but yeah.
In America it's just like big thing, like bourbon and Tennessee, we are not the same, and you're like, put them in.
I'm not actually. I'm trying to think if we've got much in there, but that's a good point.
Yeah, I was always thinking about if I would be a Tennessee whiskey distiller and I would know this guy doesn't have any bourbon. I would be like, I sue you. Right, Tennessee whiskey castle.
This is a fair point, actually. Yeah. No, I mean, generally with trading though, a lot of obviously Jack Daniels is traded heavily, but actually a lot of the casks we get aren't Jack Daniels. They tend to be other styles.
Sure, they did.
So there aren't a huge amount of Tennessee that we receive, and obviously Jack Daniels have whiskey distilleries as well, so a lot of their casks.
The thing is that the Tennessee whiskey portion is quite small, and the one that is so big, I think they have their own distilleries to trade the cask to.
Yeah, true.
So it's not that big of a topic, but yeah, I find it nice to go around with like people from the distillery, and I was like, oh, you're not all having bourbon casks. No, yeah, we have all bourbon casks. This is a Tennessee whiskey. I was like, we really don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it was inverted, and they were like, "Oh yeah, just malts, blends, and blended malts are all the same," and that would be kind of bad. So maybe we should.
Okay, but the thing is, for Scotch whiskey, it's not that important.
Yeah, again, it's all to do with the freshness of the oak.
Yeah.
So for us, we're not looking for a
depends
super
on the
active
oak.
wood. American whiskey is obviously different to bourbon, but actually we wouldn't buy that many American whiskey casks. We'd rather have relatively fresh, young-ish casks. So we're looking for a cask about 3-4 years old.
So actually, you're looking for like casks from not like really old bourbon, like a 10-year-old bourbon, but really look like one straight from the cheapest one you can get.
I mean, it's more to do with we want some of the initial kind of resins and kind of oak residues absorbed by the bourbon previously, and then we get a slightly softer finish, and we can age it for longer. I love virgin oak casks; they can be really interesting to try. But they're difficult for long aging. I wouldn't put Tomintoul in a virgin oak cask for 15 years. It would be really powerful.
Oh, that would be a bit tough.
Yeah, super vanilla.
Yeah. Super vanilla, yeah, definitely. Okay, so I have prepared a little bit of a been into production.
Cool.
So at Tomintoul we do have malts from the big maltings, and that has always been the time. And it starts then with mostly unpeated malt. Let's say it that way. In this malt mill, old 1965 Porteous malt mill. I love it that nearly all of the distilleries in Scotland run on the Bobby and the Porteous malt mills, and there's just one guy maintaining all of Scotland.
It is. I mean, it's a powerful beast. I think Porteous mills are quite impressive.
Yeah, it's just. They're built very strong, and if you treat them well, if you don't put any stones in them, they just run.
Yeah, and they're relatively easy to fix. Relatively.
Yeah. Yeah. So after you've grind them down to a coarse grist, they end up in the mash tun. And the mash tun here at Tomintoul, we have about 11.6 tons of mash in there. And during one mashing, you end up with 48,000 liters of mash.
Roughly, it's a little bit more than that these days. It's actually a 12-ton mash now, but it's okay.
You upped it a little bit.
So yeah, you're looking at roughly a more kind of 55,000-ish.
55,000-ish. Okay.
But it's in the right realms.
Okay. After you've come out now with updated numbers of 55,000, I think 2018 I had these numbers, but there's always a bit of updating going on. And then we come into the wash bags, and the wash bags at Tomintoul, hopefully there's still 6 wash bags, or did you?
Yeah, still 6 to worry.
Still with 6 months, and now they ferment with about 48 to 60 hours, depending on the day of the week, and it's I would say a medium to long fermentation.
Yeah, medium, I guess. We're not really. I know there's a big drive at the moment, especially in the kind of whiskey enthusiast. Everyone loves a long fermentation. They are interesting. You get a secondary ferment with a long fermentation, which is like a bacterial ferment. It's kind of a lactic style. For us, we're looking for an initial. So there's still a lovely development of esters and character, but we're not looking for the secondary ferment. We're just looking for the initial extraction and the initial kind of.
So you're going for softer, maltier touch to that.
Yeah, yellow fruits. It's a classic. So it's like bananas and maybe some pear and that sort of note. So it's quite a fresh style of wash.
So that is the first step where you have the flavors being created that you want to have in the cask.
Yeah.
And here you see the actual process of being fermenting, where you see you have the sweet mash in there combined with the yeast, and then the yeast works bubbles a lot. So you have the switcher blades that cut down the bubbles, and the rising CO2 is actually the chemical compound that actually happens when you have the sugar and the yeast that turns into alcohol and CO2, and that is then the alcohol comes out at about 9-ish%.
About 8. Yeah. It's the same idea.
9-ish.
Do you know what was interesting with that clip?
What is it?
Am I allowed to be annoying again?
Go ahead.
So that wasn't a Tomintoul washback.
That can't be a Tomintoul washback. Go back to the clip though.
Do you know why?
That is a wooden one.
I know it's not because it's wooden, but it's because it's got a switcher.
You don't have switches?
We don't have switchers. I was going to ask if you'd noticed that when you were at the distillery. So we're one of the few that don't.
Why?
There you go.
Where did I
There you
get
go,
the clip
whiskey
from?
fans.
I have to have a look at where we got this.
So yeah, I thought since I'm here, I'll go super geek. We'll get in depth. But yeah, so
Go back to the picture beforehand. The one where we saw the wash bags.
the wash bags. But yeah, I was going to ask if you noticed what's different about our wash bags.
Yeah, no
Is that there's no
switch blade.
switches. And the reason for that is the style of mashing we do gives you little fragments of barley husk in the wort.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, when we take that to then ferment, so our wort has little fragments of little pieces of barley, the way it's kind of pressed, the plates. And actually, when that comes to fermentation, so as you said, that you get alcohol when you add yeast to sugar, but you also get CO2, and that's the bubbles that foam over. And yeah, normally you have this rotor blade on top, which is a switcher.
Mm-hmm.
It works like a Stella knife, when people cut the top off their pints.
Yeah.
Same idea, but when you have these little fragments of barley husk, when the CO2 bubbles form in the liquid, they pop. So actually it pops the bubbles inside the liquid
So
itself.
yours doesn't foam that much because of these husks.
So I did think that looked like a very foamy wash for Tomintoul, but then I realised I had a switcher in the picture. But
Okay, probably best put that in.
But that's okay. I'll let you
from
off.
another
Sorry,
distillery.
So yeah, so Tomintoul's got a weird looking wash. I think the extraction and kind of conversion is relatively similar, but it sets up the process in the way that it's actually, you don't need the switcher mechanism.
Okay, nice.
What's quite cool about Tomintoul, and if you ever are in Speyside, and this is to people tuning in, and you want to come and see us, please reach out, because it's quite an interesting distillery to see. So it was a very modern distillery of its time. It was built in the 1960s, but there's lots of kind of old new tech, if that makes sense. So lots of things that went into Tomintoul were quite new for its time, which nowadays are either standard or they're lesser known. So there's lots of so things like that. The non-switchered washbacks is kind of interesting. It had one of the largest semi-lotter mash tuns of its time. Lots of bleeping and flashing computers, which make it look like a villain's lair from a Bond movie.
Yeah, I love the big
panel.
one, the big panels. Usually they still have the big panels. Like, we're not looking at. We have like one screen where everything is.
Yeah. So it's old, and actually it's still a fully manual distillery, which is quite cool. So it is. It's not got the boutique look of a whiskey from the distillery from the 1800s or 1900s, but it does. It's very typical of a 1960s distillery. So lots of old tech. It's a manual site, and it's not a working museum. That would be harsh on the distillery, but it's an interesting kind of snapshot of that era of distilling as well.
Good. Let's have the next dram.
Yeah. So what's cool about us showing this today is actually that it's a precursor to the third dram as well. So I'm excited that we picked for this one. But this is Tomintoul Sherry. And this is actually, the sherry is probably, you don't get any points for guessing what this is, but it's a Gaelic word for sherry.
Oh, okay.
And this is showing off the Tomintoul spirit in an Oloroso sherry characteristic. These whiskies were designed to be an alternative to Tomintoul 10 because a lot of the core range are bourbon cask. So if you've tried the 10, if you've tried the 16, the 14, the 18, they are all bourbon cask Tomintouls, mainly because that cask really works for our spirit. But this is showing off Tomintoul with a sherry influence. It's a non-aged product, but it's not super young. It's a mixture of ages. Youngest being about 4, the oldest being in the kind of 8 category. Again, that's kind of we can change that and adapt as the blend kind of goes through to make sure it tastes the same. But the finish on this is between 18 and 24 months. So actually quite a long finish in sherry. So it starts life in bourbon casks, finished in Oloroso for a year and a half to 2 years, which is quite cool.
Nice. So 1.5 to 2 years is the finish. Okay. Yeah, it's nice that I've had it before in the German one, and it's nice. You have a nice sweetness to it, and a nice fruity touch to it. Nice. A little bit of a flowery touch now in the second one.
Yeah, I think
the thing is, it really is very different to when you smell the first one and the second one. Now that you smell the first one, it smells like straight candy, caramel, bonbon.
Yeah, it smells a little bit like one of those the candied nut stands you walk past in the city, and you get that caramelized almonds and peanuts.
And that is the interesting thing, that our smell doesn't work with, you don't have absolute smell.
Yeah.
You only have relative smell. So you smell something, we hope that this is neutral. I kind of tend to have not any smells around here. And then you have the smell of the whiskey. But if you have the smell of this whiskey and you smell the other one, you have the difference between both of them.
Yeah, and I mean, for those of you that are tasting along, if you're studious enough that you keep a bit of every whiskey in your glass, it's nice to compare and contrast. When you were talking about neutral smells, have you heard of sniffing your elbow?
Sniffing? You can't sniff your elbow, can you?
Oh, you can't. Yeah, no. So, so when you're trying to use your palate, and this is a kind of a wine trick at the start, but when you're trying to compare things, you're right. You want a neutral smell, and so a smell which is usually untainted, unless you spray aftershave or perfume on your elbows, is the smell the inside of your elbow.
The inside of your elbow. I thought you like the outside.
No, the outside. That would be. Yeah, I could get you to it on camera. But you still can't manage. But to sniff your elbow, usually it's relatively a neutral smell. The other thing they use in perfumery, so if you're making scents and aromas, is they use coffee beans. My critique of you doing that is if lots of whiskeys have a kind of coffee aroma to them.
Yeah.
So if you smell coffee beans, all of a sudden the next dram's like, I'm getting notes of coffee.
Plus, I don't like coffee.
Well, there is that too.
No, I like it. That is so. This is really also epitome of gentle dram.
Yeah, it's not a sherry bomb, and I think that's I must admit, it's a style of whiskey that I loved when I worked in retail, but actually, as I've matured, I guess, and I don't mean that to people that love sherry bombs because they're big, lovely, indulgent whiskies. But for me, if I'm buying distilleries and I'm buying particular drams, I kind of want to taste that distillery style, and I think that sherry bombs can sometimes over-egg that. This is more of a medium-bodied sherry. It's not a super heavy style of Oloroso. And actually, what's quite cool with this is all European oak Oloroso as well, so it's not an American
nice.
oak. But so you do get a spice profile to this as well. And because a lot of these, the Tomintoul range just mentioned are at 40%, they're chill filtered, and these are whiskies that European oak gives you a bit more oomph and spice. So it means post-chill filtration, you're not losing a huge amount of character there as well. Like I said before, I promised you we wouldn't reduce them if we thought it made them bad, but it does give you this nice spice profile as well. So it's similar to the 10. It's going to be spicy in the mouth, particularly at the side of the tongue, and then when you swallow it, it's got that more kind of sweeter style as well. Slange of that.
Slange.
Thanks.
I like it. It is a gentle dram, yes, but it's still, you feel the oak.
Yeah.
Which is strange. In the nose, from what I've had in the nose, I would have said, oh yeah, very gentle dram, easy. When you have it in your mouth, you feel a bit of the oak. You feel a bit of that strength in there. You feel spiciness, nuttiness. Okay, nuttiness maybe also from the Oloroso, but yes, a little bit of an European oak in there as well. But not overwhelming.
No, and you could taste a bit of its initial bourbon cask maturation there too, which I quite like. So you're actually tasting the two stages of this product. But it's been a really nice introduction to the range, and again, as you know, sherry casks are more expensive than bourbon casks. Sherry cask whiskies tend to be more expensive than bourbon cask whiskies. So this was designed to be a kind of an alternative to the Tomintoul 10. Price point is quite similar. And it's been really successful since launch. So it's a small batch run that we do, and we kind of we bring these out time and time again. We try to keep it very consistent. We're not doing it as a small batch kind of variation. But obviously the bourbon styles are our kind of house style at Tomintoul, so it's sticking to that.
Yeah. And we have one question here. Yeah. Is Tomintoul using many STR casks?
None yet. And I suppose so STR are very popular now. With the amazing kind of time that we're in at the moment, this kind of new world of lots of new distilleries and exciting new spirits, STR is a really good way to enhance a young spirit. And I think I suppose we're complacent in the sense that we've got 2 distilleries with aged stock. So actually, for us, we're not in a rush to finish the cask. So we use lots of red wine casks, but we don't use STR. We just we leave them for longer rather than a shorter period of this kind of rejuvenated cask style.
Is an STR cask automatically a wine cask?
Well, it's a wine cask that's been treated in a particular way.
The shave toasted recharred.
Yeah, so it's a more active wine cask, I suppose.
Yeah. So, but if you have a bourbon cask that's shave toasted recharred, it's just a rejuvenated bourbon cask.
True. Yeah. So we use those as kind of recharred bourbons.
Yeah. Okay. But the STR is just the wine cask, the specific thing. But you do it with bourbon cask, but just a different name.
Yeah, I think the other thing is with STR is that it depends on your spirit style. So Tomintoul is quite a light spirit. So I'm always. And Glencadam is light in a different way. Glencadam's very fruit forward. But I always want to make sure that the wood isn't overpowering the spirit. Over extraction is not really a style I enjoy. So for me, with whiskey, in a selfish way, I quite like to have balance. So using a Pinot Noir cask, I suppose, or a red wine cask, slowly and letting it sit for a year or so, rather than using a very active style in a short period, it gives you a better balance of the wood, but it also can be it's not quite as heavy as some SDRs. That doesn't mean I wouldn't like to trial them. It just means that I've not had the chance to really bring them through. So it's not as much of a priority, I guess, compared to some of the other finishes we're using. But it is a very good question. And a lot of people really like that style of whiskey you can get from an SDR cask, that kind of big, full flavour that you can get from those wood types.
Okay. Okay, there's another question. Any peated whiskies from Tomintoul?
There are indeed. In fact, this one is one. But there's a couple. So you get some Tomintoul that comes in green glass, which are Tomintoul peated. We have an NAS in that range and a 15-year-old. And then we have Old Ballintruin, which is our full octane, heavy peated Tomintoul. We make this for 6 weeks a year. We'll talk about it more at the end. But this is a heavily peated Tomintoul style. The other whiskey, which is peated from Tomintoul, is the cigar malt, which uses a mixture of unpeated and peated Tomintoul stocks together.
And the other one is called, I think, peated tang or something, right?
So yeah, it used to be called peated tang. It's now called peated. It's the same juice. We just took the tang off.
Okay, put the tang off. But the thing is, the peated Tomintoul is kind of still gentle, whereas the Ballintruin, I wouldn't say gentle.
Yeah, well, so the reason for that, you're absolutely right, though. I think so. The peated Tomintoul is still called Tomintoul because it's still got that kind of house character. So it's a sweet, soft peated note. Whereas Old Ballintruin is quite different to the house style Tomintoul. It's 50 ABV, 55 ppm distillate, as ppm kind of malt distilled. So when the reason Old Ballintruin is called Old Ballintruin is because it's so different to Tomintoul that we gave it a different name. It's actually named after our water source, which is kind of cool. But
the Ballintruin water source. If you watch the production video or the distillery video from Tomintoul, I actually visited. It's very wet situation there, but you can walk up there.
It is, yeah. It's nice to see. It's got very nice views from the top.
But it would be recommended to get some rubber boots.
yeah, definitely don't go out there in flip flops.
We had good shoes, but rubber boots would have been appropriate. So next up, we've just ended with the fermented beer. They call it wash because it doesn't have any hops. And now we're ending up in the stills. So we are doing distillation, and the distillery had started off until 1974 with 2 pot stills, and they built more pot stills to it. And the pot stills are wash and spirit stills. Here in the further side, in this room, you can see the wash still, and the big one on the left is the spirit still. And the one in the other rooms are the new ones. Like, I don't know, 50 year.
Newish.
Newish. And they are pretty tall with the line arm rising, so they are really looking at a fine distillate. And when you start off with the wash still, here we see the watch glass, and that is actually kind of the new style. Back in the days, they had
whistles.
Wooden things to knock on it and have a look how hollow and how much it boils. Now this is the new one, also pretty much 50, 60 years old, to see how much it boils over, because in the wash still you really burn it fast to get production through and turn this
turn the beer into
something really liquid, into something spirity that doesn't have any bits in it, and it's just it's clear, it's worth to be distilled. And the second distillation is really, in Germany we call it fine distillation, where you take the cuts and you think about how do you distill it, what kind of flavors I want to get out of that, and what kind of flavors I want to take away from that. And what is a bit strange for you is the whole situation about the sizes of the stills. All of your stills are 20,000 liters.
Yeah, they are. I suppose that's the typical part of their age. When they were put into Tomintoul, when the first 2 sets were put in '65, normally if you've been to a distillery, you'll see that usually the wash still is bigger than the spirit still, because it's just natural volume. So one produces a lesser volume than the first. They all had 2 almost identical stills, which means you had to kind of fill 1.5 really to take over the spirit. In the 1970s, when they doubled capacity, they had the chance to remedy that. So put in 2 larger or 2 smaller, but instead they did 2 more almost exactly the same size. So now they kind of work in tandem. So we're doing spirit collection from the 2 wash stills and then charging a spirit still intermittently. But yeah, so normally if you look at distilleries, the stills and things, you'll have pairs that work larger to smaller. But yeah, Tomintoul are almost all the same size. And they're massive.
Or you could run it really, really slowly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just take your time and slowly percolate through.
Yeah, that would be a really good separation of alcohol, but it would probably change the style then.
A little, yeah.
So you're missing then the do you have an intermediate charger then?
So it's just your spirit collection or your wash collection.
Your spirit charger. Do you have a spirit charger now?
So we preheat it. But if that's what you mean.
No, but if you fill one still, the other one's working. You can have the intermediate tank for what comes out of the wash.
Yes, yeah.
So you can leave that out.
Yeah, did you know? So we nicknamed it the Blue Submarine. So all of the spirit is stored just behind the stills. You walk past this thing that looks like a. And then we keep our feints and foreshots behind. So yeah, it gets split continuously and
you still have the feints and foreshots there, so you can't really miss the intermediate tanks.
So we store them all. I mean, that's the thing, that whiskey is a continuous process on the basis that everything gets reused and all the feints and foreshots are put back through. The great time to visit the distillery actually is when we've been doing Old Ballindalloch or when we've been switching to Old Ballindalloch, because we keep a remnant tank of the old spirit, so you can walk past it. I like to kind of chap the lid, and you can get a real aroma of heavily peated spirit, even though they're doing full unpeated spirit, and vice versa. So we keep the previous remnant behind to then distill again when we go back to doing either peated or unpeated.
Okay. So you don't add up with one different.
You never use it all the way through, so we've always got some from before that is then redistilled and recollected.
Because that's always the thing. Like, okay, you're always doing the one from the run before, but what if you start up your distillery from scratch? And you keep some. Okay, nice. It's
one of those things. I think because our peated Tomintoul, and again we'll talk more about that at the end, but because our peated Tomintoul is so different to the core range and the standard classic sweet, nutty, creamy Tomintoul. We don't really do the springbank thing. You know how they alternate between Hazelburn, springbank, long row, and back and forth. We either do peated or unpeated, so you have to kind of stop and clean out all the tanks effectively and start again. But we keep some of the remnant to use for next time when we do the shutdown and the changeover.
Peat season.
Peat season, exactly, when peat season.
That's
as you saw in the video with Tomintoul,
there's always a nightmare for cleaning.
It is. It's got a distinctive aroma. And you can literally smell it as you approach the distillery, because
I mean, it's easy to switch from unpeated to peated.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you don't have to wait.
but if you switch from peated to unpeated, there a lot of caustic and a lot of
a fair good scrub.
And a lot of like, wash it. A lot of.
It's intensive. I think it's funny when we do those runs, as you saw in the video, the valley the Tomintoul sits in, we're literally surrounded by hills on all sides and kind of based in this river valley. But as you approach the distillery, you can smell when we're doing peated production. Because although we're not doing our maltings, you can just smell it in the air. The kind of the aromas coming off the stills and the mash tuns. Yeah.
Okay, so after you've distilled all of your whiskey, you actually have to mature it. So we've seen the warehouses already, and here we have a nice shot of all the warehouses just in place. And the distillery has 6 warehouses, racked and palletized, and capacity probably outdated in this number, 116,000 casks.
It's a little bit more now, but it's about 120 now.
Now 120, okay. You're using pretty much ex-bourbon casks from American white oak, but a lot of casks for finishing, a lot also casks, wine casks, or European casks. And as I said, I'm not allowed to mention it, but a lot of casks from your blending time. That I don't think that a lot of people have on their radar.
Possibly not. No, I mean it's still a really big part of our company. I mean, Angus, indeed, blending's still the vast majority of our turnover. You'll find our blends in around 80 countries around the world. But for that, we make 2 ingredients, and then the rest of them are either reciprocal traded or they're purchased. So yeah, we have it's like a spice cabinet in your kitchen. It's like an ingredients larder. All sorts of different casks.
Is it tough to get casks from different distilleries, or?
I mean, some of them not so much. Some of them more difficult than others. It's funny. So I don't know if you've heard of the term reciprocal trading before. For those that are tuning in, but effectively within the whiskey world, kind of every distillery, you're limited by your distillery style. So if you're a blender, I'll maybe use 20 different malts in a blend, but we only make 2 of those, of course. So what we do is we trade those with other distilleries, and it's the same. So they'll have their house styles and their ingredients, but they'll want some of ours. So we trade whiskies with lots of different companies. So Tomintoul will appear in blends that they do, and Glencairn will appear in blends that others do, and we'll have whiskies from other distilleries too. So yeah, we have a core recipe range of around 20 different malts, and then we also have grains. We don't distill any grains, so that has to be traded too. So yeah, it's interesting, and again, that's a big part of my job is assembling ingredients. So Robert does the hard stuff. He does the continuous distillation and making sure the spirit and the ingredients are the same every single time. My job is to start playing around with it once it's had a bit of time in cask and creating the end product. Robert is still involved in blending as well, of course. But yeah, so that's why you see so many different casks of different distilleries in there.
Yeah. Okay, and can we go back to the palletized warehouse again? Because there's a question: why are the casks palletized vertically?
So we do both racked warehouses and palletized warehousing. So palletized is the kind of classic warehouse you would see in a lot of American distilleries. Irish whiskey is almost entirely palletized, and it's the most space efficient way of maturing stock. What it's not efficient at is if I want to choose a cask which is 6 rows back and at the first row of the 8 stacked high pallets. So this is really for product.
You can't really get to the whiskey, like you can't take it from the side or anything.
Not really, because they're kind of stacked side to side.
So
I've tried it, but I don't get a very polite message back when I ask from the warehouse guys. Can I have that one at the back?
The guys with the forklift have to do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving. So palletized whiskey is primarily what we use for our blends, and these are when we can empty whole stacks at a time. So when we know it's a 3-year-old or 5-year-old or an 8-year-old, that's what these casks are for. So rather than the single malts and the finishes and things like that, these are all stored in racked warehousing because easier to access. We can take out a cask at a time and monitor. This is more when we know the cask type and we know what sort of age it's going to be put away for. So it will literally go into the warehouse, stay there for 3, 5, 8, 10, however many years, and then we'll draw it out to be used, usually for blending rather than for malts, because malts we need to access in smaller parcels. A lot of people said, most cost efficient way of storing whiskey. There have been a bit discussion going on now that they're saying no, palletized is really bad because of you lose a lot of stuff at the bottom because it just bends and it's pressure. Yeah, it depends on how you stack them.
Okay.
So the losses are slightly higher in palletized. So in terms of preference and in terms of kind of superior warehousing, dunnage warehouses have the best. Losses, best being the least losses. So dunnage warehouses are less pressure on the casks, less elevation. The losses are slightly lower, but we're talking like 0.2%, 0.1%.
Okay.
Then racked warehouses are the kind of second tier. They have slightly better losses than dunnage, but obviously dunnage is very space intensive, and a lot of distilleries are limited by the footprint. And then palletized warehouses, there is a bit more pressure. However, it's all about managing height and expectation. So you could stack them higher than we stack them. But effectively, the higher you stack the pallets, the more pressure on the cask below. And that pressure increases wood interaction and it increases the kind of chance of leaking. Really what happens is it kind of creates a bit of friction and heat, so you lose a little bit more in evaporation. But again, it's like 0 point rather than...
Okay.
So the difference between racked and palletized isn't massive, but it's more for access.
Access is one big thing for palletized warehouses.
Yeah.
It's just the guy with the forklift doesn't have any fun time if you want to have one from the back.
And it's the saddest thing is if something goes wrong, because not every cask is perfect, and every now and again you get a leak. If you have a leak in a palletized warehouse, you can't identify where it's come from, because if it's right at the back and you find a puddle of whiskey at the floor, it could have been one of 300 casks. Whereas at least in a rack you can identify which rack it is and you can kind of find them out. In palletized you just have to kind of stomach it, unfortunately, unless it's easy to spot. It doesn't happen often, but it's one of those realistic parts.
You can walk around, you can have a look, but the rest is just...
if you can't see it from the outside, you're in trouble.
The thing is, but the time for leak hunters is pretty gone. I've had not any distilleries like, we have leak hunters. I know that a few distilleries have their 50-year-old cask. they have special treatment.
I think it is. I mean, we do a lot of repairs on site. We don't. We actually have a cooper at our warehousing facility, but not at Tomintoul. But he does travel. But all the staff in warehousing are trained to do repairs. So if there is a cask that's damaged or leaking, we are able to repair them if we need to. But
Okay.
but two things that have changed. Yeah, there's not leak hunters in the same way as there was. The other thing is that wood and kind of cask coopering and things is better than it's ever been before in terms of testing and that sort of thing. So we buy all our casks fully made up. We're not assembling them from piles of staves, and they do. Yeah, the casks are higher quality and more watertight than they've ever been in the past. Especially if you're filling a lot of new wood, it always helps. But yeah.
Okay. Good. A lot of talking again.
Sorry.
It's no problem. It's very interesting. So the third one is now I really got not good at French. The Pinot Noir.
Yes, that's a good pronunciation. Yeah. So this is from Burgundy. So it is a French Pinot Noir. So this is one of a range I've been working on actually. So Cherie and Tomintoul 10, like I mentioned before, they're designed to be a sherried version of the classic 10. But what I've tried to do with Tomintoul and Glencadam as well actually is create a range of different cask finishes, but at a price point that people can trial them. So what I mean by that is sometimes some of the more exotic casks in whiskey can be quite expensive to buy because it tends to be a premium release or a special release, and we still have those as well. We have aged versions of these that are considerable in age and are a bit more high end, I guess. But I've worked in a little range of finishes which are showing off this cask type, but in an affordable price point. Same kind of grouping as the first two. So these are premium Burgundy casks. So this is French Pinot Noir.
Yeah. So what I actually didn't show before yet is all of these bottles actually come in tubes. So they are really nice for gifting as well. So 10 Cherie and Pinot.
The 10s you're rotating there.
There you go.
What time of year did you visit Tomintoul, by the way, out of curiosity, when you were over in 2018?
It was fall or maybe beginning of winter.
Yeah. Okay.
I can just tell because of the drone shot.
Drones, yeah.
The drone shot has
Did you see the purple hills?
Oh yeah, sure.
So
Yeah.
that's so the reason that Tomintoul's core colour is purple is because in August the entire valley is purple.
All the heather.
Oh, the heather, yeah, which is quite beautiful. So and so yeah, the Tomintoul is literally purple for about one and a half months a year. So that's why the 10 and the 16 and things are all these kind of shades of purple. In case you were curious, I'm not heavy on the marketing side. I get very involved in the liquid, and the rest of it I leave to the more creative styles. But that's why Tomintoul has a core colour of purple.
Yep.
Just since you were showing the trick.
So Pinot Noir. Noir is black, so it's probably one of these hefty, dark, strong
other way around.
French wines. Really?
Yeah. So Pinot Noir is one of the lighter grape varieties.
Really? Okay.
You can get heavy Pinot Noir from hotter climates. So like New Zealand is a fuller bodied style of Pinot Noir. South Africa you can get some heavy kind of warm climate stuff. But actually Burgundy is a very subtle wine. I mean, you get full bodied Burgundies, but this is one of the lighter styles of red grape. A very, very old style. These, as I say, are from Burgundy, so these are from a very classic region of Pinot. When it comes to whiskey, they're interesting because they give you like a nice kind of red fruit kind of fleshiness to them. We do other wine types as well, and if you use heavier, kind of fuller bodied wine styles, they can be really powerful and punchy, whereas this is a bit more elegant. The aging on this is actually very similar to the Cherie, so it's a non-aged statement using a kind of a good mix of ages there, and the finishing is the same, so 18 to 24 months. So the older stock in here is finished for 18, the younger is 24. This one's actually a natural colour as well, so I think someone had mentioned in the comments earlier, chill filtration does mean that you remove some colour in the whiskey. So for the first two ranges we do colour. We don't go crazy on the colour. I could have made this that colour if I wanted to. But we're looking for replacement really, so we're looking to keep that colour in the spirit. But once you pass whiskey through chill filtration, colour is something that actually is removed a little. But this one actually, we had a lot of colour still, so we left this a natural colour, even though it has been chill filtered.
I find it nice because it feels like it feels a lot different to the Cherie. It has a lot of red fruit, berries, wine, but it's a lot less sweet.
Yeah,
it feels a lot less sweet when you compare it to the first one. First one is just now cotton candy, and the second one is some kind of fruity, and the third one is just straight up wine, grapes, dry wine.
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the thing it reminds me of, actually, have you been to a winery before?
Yes.
So when they have the spent grapes, so pomace it's often called, but when they have this kind of pulp that's after the winemaking process, it's got this kind of smell to it. It's like a musty wine, like a grape skin rather than grape sweetness.
Okay.
And yeah, it always reminds me of that, of like walking around a winery. I should point out that I'm a wine guy that fell to the dark side. I traded wine, so apologies if I'm using wine terminology, but yeah, so for me, yeah, I still absolutely love going to vineyards and sort of nowadays sourcing casks as well as trying the wines. But it's yeah, very distinctive kind of character, and this kind of fleshy character is what I like. It's sweet, but a different kind of sweet, and definitely not as pronounced as you said, the kind of cotton candy notes, which I really like. That's a great taste of it. And that kind of fruitcake, I guess, is maybe the history.
Yeah, I like it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's nice.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Nice.
It's what is strange when you have it in your nose, you just feel this a lot of wine and stuff. You do have it in your taste as well, but here comes also this European oak, definitely oak, spiciness, nuttiness. For this one, a little bit of like gentle dram, but hefty dram.
Gentle-ish. Yeah.
Gentle-ish dram. This goes really on the edge of gentle.
I think it's a whiskey that actually I think drinks stronger than the ABV. Funnily enough, for this one,
yeah,
I think
strange.
you get a present. For me, I think that again, I suppose being really nerdy about casks. Something I tried to do with premium wine barrels and things like that is this is French oak. French oak is expensive to buy. The casks are used for Burgundy are some of the best French oak you can buy. So although I'm wanting the Pinot Noir flavour in the whiskey, I actually want the cask to do some talking as well. And I think that I'm not going to name and shame, but it always annoys me if I try a whiskey finish where yeah, you might get some fruit. Sauterne is one cask that is often not left for long enough. But it might taste a bit lemony or kind of sweet, but actually I want to taste the oak. I want to taste what makes this wine special. And yeah, I think that you get this nice kind of white pepper as a classic tasting note of the French oak in there. So it's spicy but sweet, and you get a nice mix of kind of berries, and also there's the weird tasting note I get in this is like cocoa fat.
Oh, okay.
So like a kind of in the process of making white chocolate, you get this kind of oil that comes through that's a really distinctive that I think you get on the back palate. But maybe that was a step too far. Can I make a shameless plug?
Go.
Your glasses are lovely. I heard that these are your own patent, right?
Yes, my father designed it.
Yeah, they're really good. As a nerd who collects whiskey glassware, and I promise I'm not just saying this for the cameras, I've never had this exact style of glass before, and it's really good.
Yeah, well, you can have some. We have tons of it.
Oh, even better. There you go. I get some freebies.
We have that one is the which version you have? Used to have the standard version.
Yeah.
This one is the what is
that?
that? That is the Halloween fall autumn version.
Nice. Yeah, I've got one here with this is your dad on the front.
Oh, that is an unsold test one.
There you go, get a rare glass.
We have the spring, we have the summer, we have the winter, and we have the autumn and fall. And I had one that I sold that had a coloring scale on it. Didn't work out that bad. Good. It was good, but people just didn't use it.
So genuinely, so the reason I asked is so I collect whiskey glasses. I love to try the different styles. As a blender, it's funny because the crossover between nosing glasses and drinking glasses is something that's always a bit of a bugbear. So in the lab, yes, I use a lot of tulip glasses. I use a lot of classic Capitas because it's the best for nosing. But for drinking, they're not very functional. And at the end of the day, whiskey is designed to be consumed. But yeah, the lip on this is lovely, and the only glass that had a similar lip was like a Riedel style, where you get that kind of soft. I like it gives you quite a nice distribution onto the tongue. So genuinely, 10 points for your glassware.
Yeah,
it's very nice.
Actually, my father is an engineer.
Yeah,
and I know the story behind the glass. So he said, okay, you need a glass with a stem.
Yeah.
In Germany, it's the same word for style.
Oh, a glass with style.
But so yeah, you can grab it easily.
Yeah.
But then he said you need a very big bottom.
Yeah.
To not
Toplet.
Toplet. And then he said, okay, you need a wide spacing to have a lot of evaporation area.
Yeah.
And to concentrate it at the top, and you don't want to have it shoot in the very back of your mouth, so lip. And then we found out that the trouble with that is it's actually hard to produce.
Yeah.
because of the stem and the fact that it's not straight and you have a lip has the tolerances of the top really depending on three things.
Yeah.
So the opening.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
has a bit of a tolerance on it.
Yeah, okay, just because of tension, I guess. Or
Yeah.
cool.
The height of the glass is pretty good.
Yeah.
but the opening at the top is not that good.
There you go. No, I say it's a really nice glass.
So that is the most customer complaint about it.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, that the top is different size, but it doesn't matter that much. This is kind of a small top. This is kind of a big top, but they work both the same.
They do. Yeah. No, it's really nice. Genuinely. There you go. I say I was only trying them out. They're actually really interesting glasses for those of you that might have tried these. Cool.
So there was one question. Can you scroll up a little bit with the question that I wanted to answer? Any tequila or mezcal cask being used?
Good question. Not yet.
Not yet.
One of the nice things with the new developments of the new developments of the casks we're allowed to use. So I've missed my words there.
Yeah, there was legal change in 2019-20.
Yeah. So it came through. So things like Calvados, tequila, mezcal came through. I might be using the first one I mentioned there. But tequila, mezcal, I've not tried a whiskey for me that's really blown me away that I think would work with our spirit. I've had some good whiskies finished in tequila and mezcal.
Isn't mezcal the smoky one?
Yeah, that's the one that's a very distinctive kind of smoky herbal kind of aroma style. I've not tried any that I think would really jump our spirits into it. But it's not that's never to say never. I kind of look at more of the wine background stuff. For what we're using at the moment. But again, if you feel that these spirits, if you're trying them tonight and you're thinking, do you know what, they'd really be good in mezcal, tequila, let me know, because I'm always open to trialing. It's one of these things.
Do you see anything you want to answer?
Try and see there. Chill filtering is a relic of the 1970s. Well, Christopher, that's the reason I mentioned it, because lots of people get a bit worried about chill filtration. And the filter what they provide for that's not really the case. Is all I'd say. Don't get me wrong, I love cask strength whiskies. I love trying whiskey literally as it comes through the barrel. Chill filtration is vastly misunderstood. Be fair to say, it depends on the temperature that you chill filter. I'm aware that this could open a massive conversation that could go on for hours. So it's not necessarily about. I'm not trying to lessen the whiskey. So it depends on the market. It depends on where it's being consumed. And we're fortunate that we live in this time where I'm guessing from your comments as well that kind of you're a big whiskey fan, and I said the term whiskey nerd earlier, which I mean endearingly. It's kind of where I found myself as well. For people who are really enthusiastic about it, you want to try high strengths and kind of all this sort of style of whiskey. However, that's only a small part of the global market of whiskey. So although the enthusiasts are the part that we fall into, that's probably 5, maybe 10% max of the global whiskey consumer market. And just because that's what we want doesn't mean we have to make whiskey for other people can't try it. And I think that it's been a funny humbling part for me as a blender as well, is that actually for my job, I want to make whiskies that I enjoy drinking, but I also have to think of the profiles of other people. So it's not that. So French oak, that's one I can be a little bit selfish on because I want that spice.
Oh, okay.
And chill filtration doesn't remove that. You tasted it yourself. It's got that nice kind of peppery note. But when it's kind of coming down to core range bottlings and kind of classic styles, it's not just about the styles of whiskey that I want. I have to make a style that kind of consumers enjoy as well, and that's where kind of so Tomintoul, for example, I saw you mention Glencadam. As much as I absolutely love Glencadam as well, Tomintoul is a bigger brand than Glencadam, and Glencadam's a lot of it's not chill filtered in 46. Tomintoul is 40%, but it's still globally it's a bigger brand. So it is a difficult one. But I'm aware it's an uncomfortable question, and everyone gets kind of worried about chill filtration. But since you're asking, I'd rather be honest with you than go that way.
My father actually did a scientific study on that.
Yeah.
He actually did chill filtration. He built his own lab chill filtration setup. There is a video about that on our Whisky.com channel. Yeah. And there's actually on Whisky.com under science, we have the whole study. Yeah. Hopefully that was translated or is still in German. Because he sent out, I'm not quite sure how many samples, I think it was 100, 500, something around in the hundreds samples, and he did a normal one and chill filtered one. Yeah. Sent it out, and numbers
Yeah, who preferred what?
And the thing is, there was no difference with chill filtration. We've seen a lot of stuff with sherry and a lot of stuff with smoke. There was like a lot people loved and didn't hate and stuff. We've seen a lot of, but chill filtration is in the margin of error. It's totally flat.
Yeah, I mean, so Swery, who are the official body on Scotch, say they make no difference.
Yeah.
I think texturally, mouthfeel can be different depending on the oils, but again, that depends on how cold you're chill filtering.
The thing is, with chill filtration, if you have a whiskey that goes to the entry-level consumer, I would call them. It's just you have to chill filter. It's just when we see it from our customer point of view, we have a lot of beginner customers that come to us and say there is bits swimming in my whiskey.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, there's bits swimming in your water as well.
just
That's normal. And the thing is, if you take water from your tap or from a normal water, I would say, not like the high premium water, and you put it in your fridge or put ice cubes in it, you see there's bits swimming at the bottom. And if you see bits swimming in your whiskey, it's like, this is not good.
Yeah, well, it's a funny thing that I do find contrasting is that, so Glencadam kind of is stauncher filtered. If it goes through hot and cold shock, you can get a kind of clouding and things like that, and then flock can occur in some cases. It doesn't happen often, but it can do, and people will quite happily return it for not looking correct, but they'll also be like, well, why are you chill filtering your whiskey? And again, it's not a dig, and for Christopher's point, I'm not
The thing is,
and I'm not singling you out either, just saw the comment there, but yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, kind of, I would always say address a whiskey based on its flavour. Try not to shop, kind of, if you're, obviously it's difficult if you're selecting a bottle, but really, the blenders of the whiskey world aren't trying to make bad whiskey. We're all trying to kind of produce whiskey that people will enjoy and love. And I'd rather hand you a glass and let you taste it before kind of saying, oh, kind of, yeah. If the number of times people looked at it and said, it's 40%, I don't want to drink that. And I'm like, but you've not tasted it. That doesn't, and if you, for whatever reason, again, everyone's got their preferences. If everyone liked the same whiskey, it'd be a boring market. But yeah, I promise you, I'm not trying to ruin these.
The thing is, if you have an expert whiskey and you have 46%, it's just not necessary. Why should you do it?
Yeah. I think that's, and again, that's the great thing with the world of whiskey. There's whiskeys for everyone, and it's not saying that they're reserved for beginners. It's just that it depends on what style you're after, what kind of whiskey you're doing. But I hope that helps.
Yeah. Here, are you committed to keeping Glencadam a straight bourbon maturation?
Who said it was straight bourbon maturation?
I don't know.
So similarly, so Glencadam, like Tomintoul, is quite a light spirit, but a different style. So Glencadam's got a really bright, fruity profile. Yeah. I could talk about Glencadam for an entire other tasting, and maybe I'll have to come back and do Glencadam sometime with you, but if you'll have me back. But yeah, so Glencadam really suits bourbon as well. Similar to Tomintoul. Tomintoul's creamy, like I said, it's a kind of bready. The classic spirit character of the new make is bready or orangey fruits. Glencadam new make is oily because it's got weird stills, but it's very fruit driven. It smells like exotic fruits, pineapples, mangoes, that kind of thing. So bourbon barrels and American oak, particularly, not just bourbon casks, but American oak barrels, really suit both of those spirit types. So that's why we fill the majority of our Tomintoul and Glencadam into bourbon casks. So all the classic line in Glencadam is bourbon, so the 10, the 15, the 18, 21, which is currently discontinued, but it'll come back. Discontinued because we haven't got any stock, because the distillery was closed for 3 years. Before anyone panics, it's not dead. But yeah, we also do cask finishing for Glencadam too. So we've got some white port Glencadam that's doing really well for us. It's really interesting. We did the 17 Portwood, which is a bit of a cult favourite. A lot of people love that whiskey, a 5-year finish in port. So similar to the fact that Tomintoul 10, 16, 18, our bourbon cask Glencadam similar, and then we do cask finishing as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, it's good. Then we have some comments about Horst. Horst is a man. Good regards to Horst, and put Horst on live. The thing is, Horst doesn't like live. Horst doesn't like live. So I make him do 1 or 2 live videos per year. So you will find him live, but the videos now for the distilleries will be now with people from the distillery or from the importer. And yeah, that's going to be the style. Just horse doesn't like life, but you'll find him in the videos, and we'll have some 2 videos still there. He's going to be there, but he's not going to be there live.
That's fine. Don't worry, I've not replaced him. He's a legend in his own right, and I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't want people to be like, "Oh, that Iain guy, he's scared off horse." That's not the case.
You'd be a bit too far away for
a regular
schedule, because we're doing videos per week.
Fair.
Okay, good. I think we've had enough chocolate. Let's have that Ballindalloch.
Got something heavy. Yeah.
So I love the idea of dancing out of line with the Ballindalloch.
So funnily enough, this came around as a blending experiment.
Okay.
As does most of the kind of changes in innovation in whiskey. So if you're a distilling company and you want a peated element to a blend, traditionally you would trade with a West Coast distillery. We still do. So there's a caveat to the story. But when we bought Tomintoul, we thought, do you know what? Why don't we try doing something totally different? We obviously had Tomintoul stock from the White Mackay days and the previous owners, and all of that was unpeated Tomintoul. But we thought, why don't we try using peat? So for 1 week in 2001, we made a heavily peated whiskey. Flash forward a few years, we discovered that it's actually really tasty. So it's the wrong place. And we now make it for 6 weeks per year. So this is 3 months in the summer, 3 months in the winter. It's distilled using barley that's 55 ppm, which is kind of cool. This is relatively local barley as well. It's from the Speyside region, Highlands of Speyside. What's really cool, and again, this term is used loosely because compared to, I'm sure if I spoke to kind of your average human being and said, this is really cool, they might not find this fact cool, but to go whiskey nerds and whiskey lovers, is that if you buy the 15 Ballindalloch, the older version, the peat that was in those bottlings is actually from Tomintoul, which is really, so the peat they were burning to peat the barley was actually a Tomintoul peat field.
Okay, like near the distillery.
So it was literally, again, we didn't make a big song and dance about it, and it was one of these things we've discovered along the way, but Fay-Moussac, which is one of the peat fields in Speyside, was active then. And we actually had barley that was malted from peat from our doorstep.
Oh, okay, nice.
Nowadays that field's in fallow, so it's not the one that's being used a lot, but it is still kind of Highland Speyside peat. The reason I love this whiskey, aside from it, and again I don't want to jump straight forward, so it's a small batch run. It is, like I say, we make it for 6 weeks. It's very different to Tomintoul. It's 50 ppm, 55 ppm pre-mashing and kind of distillation, but it's 50 ABV. So it's keeping the people happy that high strength.
If you're trying at home, it's 50 ppm, yeah.
But I like, it's important to remember it's 50 ABV too. But what I like about this is the fact that it's reflective of its area, because Tomintoul the distillery is about 300 meters above sea level. It's also in the middle of the mountains. There's no sea anywhere near Tomintoul. So if you smell the coastline and you smell seaweed, you're wrong. I would never normally say that in tasting. But there's no iodine influence, there's no coastal influence to this dram, but it is big and it is rich and it's peaty, but it's from the middle of Scotland rather than the coasts. That's not to say that peated whiskies aren't fantastic. There's some really good peated whiskies behind me and in your in your office here. But it's and I love drams as much as the next.
I love it that it's so different. You have this smokiness, and you have zero of this phenolic one.
Yeah,
this phenolic touch to it. You have it feels a lot more like a chimney. It feels like a smoked ham. It feels like a burnt out was a bonfire, something like that, and a lot less of this fresh medicinal notes to it. So it's really smothering. Yeah,
I think the note I always get from this is if you've ever been camping and you have a fire that night and you're packing your things up in the morning and you smell your clothes from the night before. It's that slightly stale, slightly sweet smoke smell. Your fact that you're not picking up phenolics is very interesting as well, because the other difference with this is that it's cut quite high. So normally for a peated distillate you cut quite low. You want to get more congeners and you want to get more of the kind of phenols and things like that carry through. We cut this at the same points as Tomintoul. So it's big and smoky, but it doesn't have that meaty, heavier edge to it. We want it to still be a kind of classic of the Tomintoul spirit area. So it's quite sweet and smoky. So it is very intense.
Yeah, you do have a good of fruity, sweety.
Yeah, for me, I always get licorice on this as well. Like
it's nice that fruity, sweety touch to it, but it's all bourbon style.
Yeah.
You do feel a bit of the bourbon character, but you feel that it's also coming from somewhere else. It's kind of a bloomy, touch to it. You have to smell a lot into the glass to find that because of the high smoke content.
And so I'm sure, I think I saw you doing it earlier too, but you know the old trick of breathing in over the back of your tongue when you nose whiskey. That's particularly relevant for high strength whiskies and for from heavily peated whiskies. And when you're talking about a floral note, if you try and breathe in over the back of your tongue, I find you get a real kind of hit of like chamomile and like floral kind of elegance, as well as the obvious big smoky notes. But yeah, something a bit fun. Again, it's not a crazy expensive whiskey. This is definitely a dram that we do that flies under the radar. And for a 55 ppm, 50
I think it is for in Germany it's 30. Can you go up a little bit to see the 39.90? Which is quite low for a 50% alcohol whiskey.
Yeah, and again, so we have 3 whiskies in the Ballindalloch line. So we have this NAS, which is roughly looking in the kind of 5 to 8 year old mark. It's kind of a bit younger and leaner. We actually want the spirit to be quite juicy in this one. We do the 10-year-old, which is a bit creamier, and they really bring the bourbon through in the 10-year-old. It's got lots of that kind of sooty sweet note. And then the 15, which is a bit more woody, a bit more spicy. So there's 3 at the moment. I might be working on some more. Maybe involving some heavy sherry thingies, but we'll see. But there is some interesting stuff coming with Ballindalloch, and it's a spirit that not a lot of people know, but those that know it tend to quite like it. Glencairn, I suppose, falls in that camp too. Yeah. But yeah, Slanjava, it's been a pleasure chatting. I'm sorry for all the words. I hope that's been okay for everyone else. But a smoky wonder. What a tasting note. I feel like my beard is just growing a little bit longer.
Oh, but it's crazy because this is really Highland style peated whiskey. A lot different to the Islay style whiskies. This feels more heathery, bonfirey, smothering. That jacket from the bonfire. I do hate the jacket from the bonfire because the thing is, with that, you have it maybe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes in your mouth, but then it's gone. And you have the jacket for days.
It's a smell that doesn't go in a hurry. But,
Yeah, the thing is with the jacket, then if you have a leather jacket, something you don't want to put it in the washing machine, it's like, fuck.
You just have to wear it until it eventually fades into the rest.
Yeah, I just hang it outside if it's summer for days.
But no, it's a fun whiskey. It's got really great pairings with like barbecued meats as well. So like grilled pork, barbecued meats. I love this as a food pairing because it's not salty, but it's savoury, which is quite fun. So you do get this kind of chew to it amongst that kind of smoke and richness. But yeah, so it's a fun dram, and I hope that those of you tuning in are enjoying that too. Something a bit different.
Okay, so a little bit of a signature. Oh, there you go. This also comes in a tube. If you live in Germany, in Austria, or the Netherlands, you can actually have the tasting here with us. You can watch the video again, and here is a little tasting box that you can buy at Whisky.com in the shop, and here we have the 4 little whiskies in there with 4 CLs, so you can enjoy it alone or with one friend. I think 3 will be a bit small. If you're more than 3, then you can buy a big tasting set of all the big bottles with a little bit of a discount there for all of the 4 bottles, and have watch the video. Or now that you watch the video, you can actually invite some friends, impress them with some knowledge, and have a nice tasting of Tomintoul whiskey. I've already had this tasting in German, and so do you want to do the rating? Which one were best for you today?
For me,
I'm not quite sure. I think I'm pretty much the same what I had in the German one. Yeah.
I think it's funny. I mean, it sounds biased because it's one of the recipes of mine. I thought the Pinot Noir was lovely. as a comparator. I love Old Ballintruin, and it's funny because when you're comparing whiskies, these three are very different to this one.
Yeah, sure.
So again, so if you're a peat fan, automatically everyone's going to vote for that one. And if you're not a peat fan, you're definitely going to pick one of those. But it's so I think Pinot I was enjoying a lot. The Old Ballintruins always love to retaste, and the other two I know really well. Tomintoul 10 is a dram I dram with all the time. We use it as an opening dram to a lot of tastings. It really does show you the Tomintoul style, and I think so. The nerdy whiskey element of me, I love to taste the DNA of a distillery, whatever distillery that may be. I like to be able to identify a house style. So that's why we showed this first, and then these ones you're seeing the alternatives. So yeah, I've not really given you an answer, I suppose, but probably the Pinot if I had to pick one.
So my setting would be I really love the Ballintruin.
Thanks.
So yes, I am a bit of a peat fan, but it sticked out because it's so different and so well made.
Yeah.
The next one would be the Sherry. It just worked for me.
Yeah.
The 10-year-old was just pleasant, and then the Pinot Noir. Yes, it's nice. Unfortunately, it has to be fourth place.
No, that's fair. That's
fair. but for today, it's just wasn't my thing to have that much of a wine in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as long as you're not hating any of them, that's the main thing. If
No,
goes,
okay then. The thing is, I think I only had 2 or 3 whiskies that I hated, and I can only name one of them.
Fair.
Yeah, I do love whiskey.
That's the great thing about drams, and I think that one thing hopefully you've gathered from the fact that I'm not a very kind of corporate styled presentation. I'm always happy to talk about other whiskies. The thing I love about the whiskey industry generally is that there's so many great drams in there, and to be part of that and to be able to make whiskies that go into that kind of puzzle, that kind of library of great malts is quite a privilege, really. And if everyone liked the same thing, everyone would buy one brand and that would be it. And that's the fun thing, is finding different profiles and flavours and seeing who likes what more. And the fact that me and you are polar opposites in terms of you rate this bottom and I rate the top, I think is great. I think it's kind of that's part of the joy of whiskey and palates. It's not about. I think
Our chat actually had a bit of a strong bias towards the Ballintruin.
And an equal split.
75% Ballintruin, and the other ones are all 8%. I think the German one, I think we had a lot more votes. There were above 50, I think.
Yeah.
And it was very equal.
Yeah.
Still the Ballintruin won with 40%.
Yeah.
And then came I think it was still the Sherry with 30, and close in second with the I think 25 or something with the what do you call it, the Pinot Noir.
Yeah, that's cool. Again, I think it's finding styles that you liked, and hopefully people tuning in and tasting have really enjoyed these. I think all the whiskies we've shown tonight are actually all quite affordable drams. And again, obviously, luxuries are luxuries. I'm not guessing who affords what, but none of these are super expensive. In fact, buying all 4 of these will cost you less than most other drams for a single bottle. But I think that's part of the fun.
Tomintoul is a bit of a hidden gem.
Thank you.
If you have like the common known whiskies that every beginner knows, you have a bit of a premium to pay for that name. You don't have that with Tomintoul. It is a beginner's whiskey. You can have it as a beginner or as an intermediate, or some of them also as an expert, and but they don't cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. We don't kind of, as much as I'd love you to enjoy my drams, and Robert would say the same thing, we would never want to put you in a place of kind of financial difficulty to enjoy Tomintoul. That's not it's not our aim. We kind of want you to enjoy them you can enjoy it on a Tuesday night and not feel guilty about it, rather than think, oh, I'm not going to eat this week, I'm going to buy a bottle of whiskey. That's not what we're looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah. Thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It was really nice talking to you, and it was a really nice range. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the chat, for having great questions and working with us. And yeah, there was one last thing about the next live tasting. It's going to be on the 8th of March. Yes, there has been a time shift. If you've already marked that, like you want to be in there, it just got postponed a little bit because we had a bit of trouble getting the bottles right, and now it's on the 8th of March, and as always it's 19 p.m. Central European Standard Time for German, and 8 p.m. or 2000 in English on Whisky.com. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you find some friends that also like to watch this video, then please feel free to share this video, and see you next time.
Thanks guys, Slanjava.